Night continues with more interviews and great conversation to get you through the night on News Talk 1010 CFRB in Toronto and CJAD 800 in Montreal. Here's Peter Anthony Holder.
And still to come on the program, a little later on we're going to talk about velvet paintings. Oh, don't cringe. There's actually a museum for velvet paintings. And we'll meet the co-owner of the museum. It's the Velveteria, who's also the author of the book Black Velvet Masterpieces, highlights from the collection of the Velveteria Museum. Wait for it. But right now, not every Hollywood gig is glamorous. In What I Really Want to Do on Set in Hollywood, a guide to real jobs in the film industry, the author, Brian Dzyak, details the often grueling, gritty life of the behind-the-scenes jobs on a Tinseltown set. Brian is on the line with us right now. In addition to being the author, he's also a cameraman. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hi. Good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We've had actors on the program, and one of the things we always talk about when we say actors, they say actors are not, at least in movies, actors are not paid to act. They're paid to wait. And when the waiting takes place, a lot of work is being done.
That's correct. That's exactly when we go to work. There's a lot that goes on before the camera ever rolls. A lot of pre-production goes on before cameras even arrive on a set, and then we're all just working very hard for 12 to 14 hours a day to get one good take per setup, and that's what people see on the movie screen.
People, I'm one of those people who actually stays in the theater right to the very end until the curtain closes.
Thank you.
For those of us who do, we see the credits, and I'm sure a lot of people are curious to know just who these people all are.
Right. They're people just like, you and me. Just normal people. Middle class. We're not all making millions of dollars, like the top actors and directors. Everybody's just working for a living. Nothing special. They're very accessible. People have families, and, we go to work, and it can be there can be ups and downs. It's not the 9 to 5 under fluorescent lights. It seems glamorous, but it's really just long hours, and it's fun. You've got to like it, or else you're not going to ever succeed. But it is work.
And as was sometimes alluded to in the most recent strike, it is the folks that you don't see. A lot of the names that go by on the film set, on the credit roll, those are the ones who end up getting hurt the most during work stoppages.
Right, yeah, it really does go back to the money because of the way we all work. We're not on salary. We're not hired by the studios the way it used to be in the old Hollywood system where people would be in a contract. Almost everyone, especially who works on set, is a freelancer. So you'll get a job, and it may be for the entire length of a project, or you may be day playing, days here and there, and that's where your money comes from. So the ability to survive in the business is really all about maintaining a career that has longevity and keeping your bank account, to a point where you can survive these slow times when strikes hit or when work moves out of the country. United States lost a lot of work first to Canada, and then we've all lost work to places in Europe and Australia and New Zealand and things like that. So as producers look for less expensive places to shoot, the work sort of migrates across the globe, and so everyone has to adapt as best as they can.
Well, since our dollar's gone up, you don't have to worry about that as much as to our chagrin, I may add.
Right.
What made you write this book?
It was really a response to a lot of emails and phone calls I was getting. I put up a website several years ago, and I just started receiving cold calls from people around the world just calling me and emailing me, asking me how I did it. They didn't know me at all, but they were bold enough to pose the question. So I started answering them, and I realized that they had the same kind of questions I did before I got in the business. So I realized that those resources just weren't out there. I mean, there are film schools out there which are pretty good, and there are books out there which are really good, but for the most part, the books and resources are out there, explain how to make a movie, but no one was explaining how movies are made. So that's what I set out to do. So people would know more about what the reality of the business is so that they could make better decisions and choices so that they could find their way to a successful career that they were looking for.
And we should mention you've been working on films as a cameraman such as We Are Marshall, Wanted, and Evan Almighty, just to name a few. But to get to where you are right now as a cameraman, there are other jobs along the way on a film leading up to becoming a cameraman, correct?
Sure. I mean, there are different, you're not just a cameraman. There are different aspects of the film industry to talk about. The book goes into all the explanations, so it's hard to boil it down very quickly, but you've got features, and there's episodic TV, and music videos, and commercials. Those kinds of things all sort of follow the same working protocols, and they all have the same sorts of crews working on them. So there's a cameraman, and then under him he's got camera operators, and then a first assistant focus puller, and a second assistant who does the slate thing that everyone's familiar with. And then there's a loader who loads the film. So you've got that whole department doing all those things and those kinds of productions. So to get to the top level where you're the cameraman in a feature situation, you may either have to work up from a loader, or and that may take 20 years, or may never happen.
What exactly does a loader do? And has technology changed and, if not, eliminated some jobs that we would normally have seen in a film set 10, 15 years ago?
Right. The HD technology that's coming along is getting pretty good. There are many productions using high-definition cameras that are improving all the time. For those movies, you still need the same basic core of people who have always worked on movies. The only positions that really kind of might change in an HD situation would be a loader, in which case you might lose him or her and replace that person with what's called a DIT, or a digital imaging technician, who works with the DP to adjust colors and things on set. But for the most part, that technology isn't changing everyone else who needs to be there. You still need the production designer and the art department and the makeup people and the hair and props and grips, electrics, and everyone else. That doesn't change. Just because it's sort of a video camera doesn't mean everything else has to go away. So it's all pretty much the same protocol that's been for the last 50, 60 years.
We are talking with Brian Dzyak, who is the author of a book called What I Really Want to Do on Set in Hollywood, a guide to real jobs in the film industry. By the way, you can check out his website, which is www.dzyak.com, and that's spelled DZYAK.com. You can also go to my website, peteranthonyholder.com. Click on the What's On page for tonight's date. You'll find a link to Brian's website, also a link to Amazon.com and Amazon.ca, where you can order the book directly. We'll take a quick break, and we'll continue talking with Brian here on Montreal's News Talk leader, CJAD 800, and News Talk 1010 CFRB Toronto.
Canada's favorite overnight talk show continues with Peter Anthony Holder on CJAD 800 in Montreal and News Talk 1010 CFRB in Toronto.
And we are talking with Brian Dzyak, who is the cameraman and author of What I Really Wanted to Do on Set in Hollywood, a guide to real jobs in the film industry. Was being a cameraman something you always wanted to do?
Funny question. No, I feel like I just sort of fell into it. Although saying that, I remember my earliest memories are playing around with cameras, in our backyard in Ohio. So maybe it was just sort of built in to my genes. I don't know. Yeah, it's just sort of, I've always been drawn to it. I'm not really qualified for much else. So it worked out, I guess, so far.
We've alluded to the fact that it may not be the most glamorous job, and of course the glamour goes to the actors, the directors, and occasionally the screenwriters. But the thing that's interesting about the people who work on films, at least it's been my experience, they work in the trenches, but they're very passionate about what they do, and very proud of the jobs that they play and the role that they play in making a motion picture or a television show.
Yeah, absolutely right. You know, I was a cameraman. I started as a cameraman at a PBS station in Ohio. When I first started out, when I was back in college, WBGU TV, and I moved out to Los Angeles in 1992, and soon after started camera assisting, and I was a camera assistant for about 15 years and kept shooting video, and that eventually turned into shooting behind the scenes, moved into the marketing instead of production, which I've been doing for the last several years. But as a camera assistant or anything on a movie set, you're so involved in your own job that you don't often have time to even really pay attention to what other people are doing. I mean, you see that, but you don't really know what they've gone through. So to write this book, I went and interviewed people from every department and every job. And what I found most was that every person I spoke with was very excited about what they did. They're very passionate, and they all felt that they themselves were filmmakers. The sort of preconceived notion is that the director is the filmmaker on the set, and that really couldn't be further from the truth. You know, it takes a lot of people to make a movie. It's a very collaborative process by its very nature. You know, painting or writing or sculpture, those are things that could be very solitary. But to make a movie, it takes a lot of people to do. And all of those people, from the art director to the dolly grip, they all consider themselves to be filmmakers. And you have to be passionate about this. It's just too difficult of a business to get into and to keep a career in if you're not absolutely enthusiastic and passionate about it.
Yeah, you mentioned a particular position, and again, it's one of the many jobs people see going by on the screen in the credits, and people always ask the question, so I'll ask it of you right now so you can answer it. You mentioned the dolly grip.
Yes.
There's also key grip.
Right.
There's best boy. Who are these people?
Which one first? Which is the dolly grip?
Yeah.
The dolly grip, he's really, he's operating the camera as much as the camera operator is. He works with the camera department to lay track and to essentially move the camera either laterally on a dolly or vertically with a crane or a jib or something like that. He's a grip, but he works closely with the camera department. So he's pretty integral to the dynamic movement of a camera. The key grip is there are keys to each department. And the key grip is in charge of the grips, and there's typically on sort of a normal movie, there's a key grip, and then he has 3 to 4 grips under him, and the key grip works with the director of photography and with the gaffer to figure out the logistics of each setup. So each shot is a setup, and every time you need a shot, you build a setup, and then you shoot several takes of it. And when the director's happy, you tear that apart and do a new setup. So each of those keys is working with the director to figure out what that setup's going to be, and then the crew under them makes it happen.
And best boy?
The best boy, each department sort of has best way to put it in layman's terms, is sort of a secretary of the department. There was a lot of equipment coming in and out, and paperwork and time cards and all sorts of things that aren't necessarily physical labor, but someone needs to keep track of all of that. So in the grip department, the electric department, they have best boys. The camera department has the second camera assistant typically does that sort of thing, the paperwork and keeping track of what equipment's coming in and out during the course of production. So
is the best boy ever a girl?
On occasion, there aren't a lot of women in those crew positions. There are some. I'm not going to say there aren't any. But traditionally, you're going to see a lot more men in a lot of different crew positions. Makeup and hair tend to be more women. Wardrobe tend to be more women. Script supervisors tend to be more women.
Sometimes PAs are women, too.
Oh, definitely. PA is sort of a entry-level position in a lot of ways, and that is sort of the stepping stone to the AD department and they handle the logistics of getting the movie made. So.
And when I say I should mention production assistant.
Production, that's right.
We talk about the fact that there's a lot of, as you say, grunge work, but and people, we've been downplaying the glamour of it all, but the upside of this is, I mean, you get to shoot film, and you get to shoot film in some exotic locales. You've traveled, right?
I've been around, yeah. A lot of it's with the marketing work that I've done. I've been around the world. I was in Prague last year for 3 months doing behind the scenes on the film Wanted, which will be out soon. I don't know the exact release date. I was in Washington, D.C. I think that was the last time I was away. Been all around the United States. So the thing about the film industry is that it's very nomadic. There are a lot of stages in the Los Angeles area, so we'll do a lot of stage work here and then go on location elsewhere to shoot. Or, we might, because of tax incentives or other reasons to go to a distant location, we might end up doing several months somewhere else, like Louisiana or, Canada or Europe somewhere.
But then there are times when you're not doing glamorous stuff, like when you're under a bridge for the Fast and the Furious 4.
That's right. Yeah, right. We were about 2 weeks ago. I think we spent a few nights underneath the 105 freeway all night. So it's not red carpets and flash bulbs and everything. It can be difficult work. So doing nights, it can take a couple days to recover from that, to go back on a day schedule.
After the movie is shot and it's actually in the theaters, when you see a film, or even years later, if you're happening to catch one of your films on either DVD or a movie network of some kind, when you see the film, do you get into the story? Do you get into all of that, or do you think of, gee, it takes this to get that shot done, or I remember that day, or whatever the case may be?
I do have difficulty watching movies that I've been on. Yeah, it kind of, and even movies that I haven't worked on, if I I've worked with the actor or know the location, it takes me out of it. I almost feel like that makes me a better film watcher, because if a movie is so well done that I don't even think about those things, then I know that it's a hit for me anyway. If I start to think about the locations and wow, that must have been really rough doing that. I feel sorry for the crew because they had to do all those nights. Then I know I'm out of the story, and it's probably not that good.
The book is called What I Really Want to Do on Set in Hollywood: A Guide to Real Jobs in the Film Industry. It's written by cameraman Brian Dzyak, and again, you can check out his website at dzyak.com, DZYAK. You can also go to my website, peteranthonyholder.com. You'll find links to Brian's website and also links to Amazon.com and Amazon.ca, where you can order the book directly. I thank you very much, Brian, for taking the time to be on the program with us this morning.
Well, thank you, Peter, for having me. Really appreciate it.
We'll take a break, and on the other side of the break, we'll talk about velvet paintings. Yes, this is Montreal's News Talk leader, CJD 800 and News Talk 1010 CFRB Toronto.